everyone. My name is Avery Ortiz, and today I'm going to be going over a kindergarten math lesson that has to do with ways to add and subtract. Now, the whole concept of this lesson is that we want students to be able to represent addition and subtraction using either objects, their fingers, mental images, drawing, sounds, even having them act out a situation, even verbal explanations, in order to show how they were able to solve that addition and subtraction problem. Now, we also really want them to understand how addition and subtraction means either to put together or to take apart. And that is why those are our two main vocabulary words for this lesson. So for students, we would tell them that to add means to put together and subtract means to take apart. You can even model this before going into the lesson for students by doing an addition problem and a subtraction problem on the board. And the great thing about this lesson is that you can actually use objects in order to show them how you are adding and subtraction before you even jump into the lesson. Now, on my board, we have various ways that we can add and subtract. Starting with our first example, we have beads or counters. So beads and counters are really great because you can actually use two different colors for students to really see the different groups that they're going to be adding or subtracting. And for subtracting, you can even go to one color if students are progressing really well with subtracting with objects. So for this example, we have one green counter and three red counters. So students would do 1 plus 3 equals 4. If they were subtracting, we would start with all 4 counters, and we would cross out 3, so we'd cross out the 3 red counters, and students would be left with 1 green counter. So students would put that as their answer. When you are doing this on the table with students, it's best to just give them a set of 10 counters and have them pull the counters themselves. So for this problem, you'd have students pull 1 colored counter and then 3 different colored counters and have them add, and you can even have them push them together so that they understand that adding means to put together. If students want to use something other than beads or counters, they can use their fingers. Now, the great thing about this method is that you can actually find a hand printable that students can fold up and down, or you can have them use their hands. So for this problem, we have 2 plus 5. So we'd have them show 2 fingers on one hand and 5 fingers on the other. Then you're going to have them count all of their fingers, so 7 fingers. However, if you wanted to do this as a subtraction problem, you would start with all 7 fingers up, you'd have them put down 5, and what's left is their answer. Now, traditionally, when doing subtraction with your fingers, you would have students, if possible, if they have 5 fingers down, put the hand down so that they can see what they're left with. However, if we were doing a problem such as maybe 6 minus 3, they can't really put down any other fingers. So it really just depends on what your subtraction problem is. For the next example, we're going to use coins. So for this, you would have students pull 6 coins and arrange them, and then you'd have students pull 1 more coin and put it away from the 6 so that they can see the 2 different groups. Then you'd have students count all 6 plus the extra to get their answer of 7. Now for the coins, if they were going to do subtraction, you'd start with all 7 of them in one group, and then we'd take 1 coin away, and students would be left with 6 coins. So this is great because even as students progress into their math education, once they know the value of a coin, they can actually use coins to add and subtract larger numbers. So this is a great tool to start using early in order to build on that foundation. Now, the next example would be to draw pictures. This example is a little different because students would start with an expression and then they would draw to match the expression. So for this one, we have 2 plus 3. So you'd have students draw 2 pictures, and then you would have students draw 3 pictures, and you'd have them count how many pictures that they drew in all, which would be 5 pictures. Now, if you were going to do subtraction for this, you could have them start with 5, so you would have your student draw 5 pictures, and then if they were going to take away 3, for example, you would have them cross out 3 of the pictures they drew. And that is to show them that we are taking apart how many pictures they drew. You are getting rid of, taking away those objects so that they are only left with 2 pictures, which would be their answer. We can use any of these methods in order to solve a word problem. So for example, one word problem would be 6 dogs were sitting in Harry's yard. 4 more dogs came outside from sitting inside. How many dogs are in Harry's yard now? So if we wanted to use the coin method for this example, we would start with 6 coins. So you'd have students pull 6 coins like this. So they can have them in their hands, they can have them on their desks, but they just need to have 6 pulled away. Then we know that 4 more dogs came outside. So you'd have students put 4 more coins. Now, for this problem, I would have students put all of the coins into one hand so they can see that they're putting it together. And I'd use this motion to show that you're putting both hands together. Now you would have students count all of the coins. Now we know that there's 10 coins in our hand. For example, if you were going to turn this into a problem where they could only use their fingers, for example, you would have them show that they had 6 dogs that were sitting in Harry's yard, and 4 more dogs came to play. You'd have your students count all 10 of their fingers. We could use beads and counters for this problem, and you could even have them draw pictures. So for this one, you could even have them draw 6 dogs sitting in a yard, and then you could have them do 4 more dogs coming outside to play from inside. Now, you could also turn this into a subtraction problem, which is really great. You could have all 10 dogs sitting outside. Now you'd have, if you were drawing this example, you would have students draw 10 dogs all sitting outside, and then you'd have them cross out 4 dogs to show that only 6 dogs were sitting in Harry's yard. You could also do this with your fingers. So you'd start with all 10, because we know that there's 10 dogs in all, and then we put 4 fingers down for the 4 dogs that are going to go inside. So students can see that they are left with 6 fingers. Now, for the coins, you can do the same thing. You can have students start with all 10 coins in their hand. And then you're going to have students take 4 dogs, or 4 coins for this, and have them show you how they're physically separating this in order to represent the subtraction or taking apart. Now, for any of these problems with coins, you can have them do it in their hands or on their desk, and the same thing with the beads and the counters. You really just want them to show you that they are able to take apart the groups and put them in 2 separate piles for subtraction. And for adding, you really just want them to be able to put them all together. For their fingers, if they're going to be using a cutout, you really just want them to focus on either folding the fingers up or down or showing you how to do the addition and subtraction on their hands. Now for our word problem, this is a great one to have students act out. So for this one, you can have 6 students sitting in the front of your classroom, and then you can have 4 more dogs or students sitting at their desks. And as you're reading, you can have the students come up and really just act out this whole problem, and you can have students be able to act out how many dogs there are in total, and you can have the rest of the class count how many dogs there are. So for this, you can use any of these methods, and you really just want students to know that they can use any objects to represent addition and subtraction.